dad is my hero because he fights for his country. He has always taught me to be a leader and not a follower, and always picks me up when I'm down.
My hero is Casey Bernard. She is my hero because whenever 2 seniors asked her if she was a Christian, she didn't stutter, but said yes, and she was shot in the head immediately and was killed instantly. She's my hero because she didn't deny who she was, which is a child of God.
Who's your hero?
My mama,
Why?
because she makes my babies feel better.
Jesus is my hero because he is awesome.
Who is your hero?
My dad,
Why?
because he keeps me away from my brothers and he teaches me how to swim.
Who's your hero?
My dad,
Why?
because we were trying to go find something like campsite 12, and we were going to see how far we could get, and so we couldn't go across because water was going. And so my dad, he started picking up rocks and started putting them so we could get across. My dad is my hero because he taught me a lot of things that I didn't know how to do.
I don't know what.
Gonna.
So he helped you get across the water on rocks?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So who's your hero?
My dad.
Who's your hero?
My dad.
Who's your hero?
My dad,
Why?
because he's big and strong.
Are you sure he's big and strong?
Uh-huh,
How do you know?
because he told me.
We have some great kids at Transformation House. And Jonathan's doing a great job with them every Sunday morning. They have a blast back there in the back, and I love making this video with them. So they're so much fun. Well, I missed being with you guys last week, but I had so much fun. I don't know if you could tell that. Those of you who were here last week, you got to watch live streaming from Lexington, Kentucky at Quest Community Church. And thank you, Tim, for making that work for us last week. It was so much fun. Pastor Pete Heiss has been on sabbatical this summer, and that's wrapping up. Today's his last Sunday away, and then he'll be back next Sunday there preaching. But this month, while he was, and Quest is really excited, the Questers are really excited for him to come back. While he was gone, this church staff has been preaching this summer, and then this month, they did a series called I Am the Impact, and they had other guests come in to speak. And last Sunday, I was honored to be on a panel of Uprising pastors. And most of you know what the Uprising is. It's the conference that we go to at Quest every April. And you want to be there next April. I'm just telling you, you want to be there next April. You need to sign up. We'll take 4 buses if we have to. Of course, we'll have to bring your neighbors, but it will be worth it. The main speaker that's going to be there next year is Stephen Furtick from Elevation Church in Charlotte, and he is actually speaking there today. Well, they're showing a DVD of him speaking from another conference, but it's him speaking, and he's talking about audacious faith, which we went through last year, his book and a series, Sun Stand Still, if you remember that. That was Stephen Furtick's book, and he's going to be the speaker there next year, so we all need to go. Yes. I'm just telling you, we all need to go, because Quest has this uprising, it's really not a conference, but I don't know what else to call it. But anyway, They do that in April.
It's a movement.
A movement, that's right. Thank you. And it really is, and which was one of the reasons that I was able to go this weekend, because when we went to the first one in 2010, Transformation House didn't exist. It existed in our hearts. We were planning on starting the church, but we hadn't had our first service yet. So when we went to Quest, as those of you who heard me say this last week, but when we went to Quest, we saw the way they do ministry at their church. We saw how they're leading people to Jesus, and how they're loving people and really impacting their city. And we said, this is the kind of church we want to be when we start. The reason that the rest of you are here is because of Quest Community Church, because they impacted us to the extent that we wanted to be an impact to Greenville. And so it really has worked. It really has worked. I see you, all of you, being the impact to your community, to your neighbors, your family. I hear your stories and how God is using you, and it's just, it amazes me to look back at where we used to be meeting in our living room every Sunday. And even back then, after the first year that we went, we bought a video series that they had done in their church called Cracking the Code. And we brought it back, and every Sunday night we watched one of their services in our living room. And we were Quest Community Church in Simpsonville for 8 weeks. And this morning, Brent, I hope everybody's met Brent. Brent Mulberry is from Quest Community Church. He happens to be in town this weekend, and so he's our guest today. I'm so glad you're here, Brent. Thank you so much. He was part of the production that you saw the production. You know, like, not like this production, but the production. Stage manager, sound, and that kind of thing is what Brent works with at Quest. And we're just so thrilled that you're here. And I will say to you, since they're not all here today, we'll say to you, thank you for the investment that you've made. Right? Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Last week I was able to share our stories, and most of you heard those, the story of Transformation House and how God has changed our lives individually. One of the stories that we got to share was Amber's story. Everybody knows Amber now. Everybody knows the bow tie story. And if you don't know, because not everybody was able to see it last week, but Amber was out of church for a while because church she had been in painted a really ugly picture of Jesus to her. And tried to put her in a mold that she didn't fit into, and said, if you don't fit in this mold, then we don't want you in our church. One of the things that Amber likes to do when she's not relaxing, I mean, she looks fine today, but you know, Amber dresses. Amber knows how to dress, and she loves those bow ties. So, so when we found out that was her story with her previous church, and she came to Transformation House that first Sunday, Chris presented her with a bow tie. And we told her that we would love for her to wear every Sunday that she comes to Transformation House. And she's been here ever since. Jesus has really changed Amber's life. Well, a lot of people really connected to that story at Quest last week and online. Watching it online, I've gotten a lot of comments from people. At the end of the Saturday night service, last Sunday, what you saw last Sunday was one service of 3 that we did, identical services. Saturday night was one service, then 2 services on Sunday. I would have been fine if they just videotaped Saturday night and played it twice on Sunday. But it was more fun just doing it live. I really did love it. But after the Saturday night service, the first guy that walked up to me after the service introduced himself. He said, my name is Daniel, and I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. He said that he grew up as a gay teenager in the Independent Baptist Church in Greenville, where all he all he experienced was rejection. A lot of us know what that's like. We've been in not necessarily that group of churches, but any church. We've had the experience where we weren't always accepted for who we were or for what, as God was working in our lives, and people didn't want to walk with us through what we were going through. They expected us to be who they thought we were supposed to be now. So, so what Daniel is doing, and then his sister came. Daniel's sister was there too. Her name is Hannah. Daniel and Hannah were there, and he said they moved to Lexington, went to Quest. God really transformed their life. He met Jesus, found out he didn't really have a relationship with him before he got there, that he knew about him, but he really didn't know him. And now he knows him, and he wants to change people's lives now. He wants to be the impact. And he's working in the music and movie industry now. He's moving from Lexington to Nashville. And so he can be closer to people who are in the movie and music industry. And he is starting a business. He and his sister are starting a business. Guess what they're doing? Nobody would ever guess it, but you didn't already hear the story. But I'm going to show you their business card. Can you see this? They make custom-made bow ties. and they use this, they use this business as a means of connecting with people and really impacting their lives with the gospel. It's not just about making bow ties, but it is about them impacting people's lives. So this morning, we have another gift for Amber. Chris is going to give it to her because because this was after the Saturday night service. They came back to the second service on Sunday morning so they could bring us this gift that they had made Saturday night. After the service, they went back and made these to bring to her. So she has 2 new bow ties.
Wow. Awesome.
That's so cool.
I gotta get the information.
You're not getting this card, but I'll make you a copy. I'm just going to wear it. Because I didn't get a book. I want you to hear that, you know, what you might think is the most insignificant part of your story might be the very part that God uses the most in somebody's life. The part of your story that you feel like, you know, I really don't want to tell this part, or it really doesn't have that much meaning. I mean, there are so many. The people that I met last week after the services, they all had something different that they heard from something I said. And sometimes it was something that I thought, really, did I actually even say that? But I knew I must have, because it was my life. But anyway, I want to encourage you to always be open. Be ready just to say yes. When Jesus says, look, this is your life. You're living this life because it's the one I gave you. I created you to love you and to use you, to impact the world around you. So don't be shy at saying yes when Jesus asks you to do something. Be quick to say yes. The simple yes is what Jesus is looking for. So thank you, Amber, for allowing me to share your story last week. It really touched and moved a lot of people. Part of what I shared last week was the fact that the Lord gave me the vision to start this church in 1990, 21 years before we started it. And I didn't talk about specifics last weekend, but most of you know that on our very first launch service, which was February last year, February 6th, we had our first service. On February 5th, before I went to bed, I pulled out my prayer journal from 1990 to just read what I had written down about what I felt the Lord was saying to my heart about coming to Greenville to start a church. And when I looked at it, the very first thing on the page was the date of when He first gave me the vision, which was February 6th, 1990. The exact day of our first service, February 6th of last year. 21 years to the day from the call to the fulfillment of the call. And in that period of waiting, so much happened in my life. God did so many things in my life. But one of the things that somebody heard, and it was an older gentleman in the church, and he came up to me and he told me some of the stuff that he dealt with in his life, like alcoholism and things that were so hard for him to let go of. But he loved Jesus, and he wanted to serve Jesus. And he said, I just feel like I have to get this thing right in my life before Jesus can use me. And I feel like I'm in that waiting place, but I also feel like God is saying, just step out and do it. But he said, your story of waiting for 21 years really connected to me. And what I want you to hear out of that is that it's never too late. It's never too late for you to do what Jesus calls you to do. It doesn't matter if you've said no 50 times, or if you've said no 500 times, or if you only said no once. It doesn't matter. All God is looking for now is yes. He's not looking for, I'm sorry I said no 500 times. He just wants to hear yes to what he's put in your heart to do. And I want to ask Amy to come up and join me, because Amy has kind of a waiting story too that she's going to share with us this morning. In our, when we first started, I'm so glad you're here. When we first started working on planning for this church, one of the things at the top of our prayer list that we prayed for every week, that I prayed for every day, was that God would send us a worship leader. I know that one of the things that really impacts a person's heart is music, and one of the things that touches God's heart is our worship to Him. And I know how important that is. So we've been praying for, Lord, send us a worship leader, send us a worship leader. And so we were here for 1.5 years with me as the worship leader, and still praying. So then God brought Amy to us, and I'm so thankful. But I want to let her share the story of how she got here, whatever she has to share about that waiting time.
Well, I watched the service from last week that they put online, which it was a different service than what we had watched here. And on that service, Tony talked a little bit more in depth about starting Transformation House and kind of like his background with waiting. And one thing that he talked about was how, you know, it took 21 years, but kind of he was trying to, I don't want to say make it happen, but he was like, we're trying to get there. That's what he said. We're trying to get there. We're trying to get there. And that really, like, cut me, because I've known since I was a little girl, like, that I'm supposed to lead worship. Like, I've always known that. And it just got to a point where, like, you know, I was trying to be perfect enough that someone would see and say, like, oh yeah, you're supposed to do that. And every time it didn't happen, I just felt like less and less and less. And then, you know, I got to where, you know, the past couple of years I just lost my faith because of so many things. And all these times that I'd been in church and I was doing the right things and I was saying the right things, and no one ever saw it. And then here I was completely broken, and I had no faith left. And God was like, okay, now. And I was like, now? Like, I kind of hate you. And I don't know how I feel about you. I don't even know if I believe you're really, though you're talking to me, but it was just like, now? And that first Sunday, I mean, like, if you guys remember, like, I lost it. We sang the song today, and when it says, when you call, I won't refuse, and it was just like, you know, I don't want to refuse anything from him anymore, but thank you. The thing about, you know, trying to get there that really like got me was, I was telling him the other night, we were talking about it, that, you know, what I was doing as far as, you know, trying to be perfect and trying, it wasn't because I didn't love God, and it wasn't because I didn't want him to have the glory in what I was doing, or for it, you know, to be a reflection of him. It was, I loved people so much, and I thought the only way that I was going to reach them was if I looked like them. But if I look like them, then what are they going? What change are they going to see? And so, you know, it comes back to that thing you hear a lot, like, God doesn't just take the bad from you, he takes the good from you too for something better. And, you know, being here, I just realized that I don't have to look like anybody else, and I don't have to do what, you know, this worship leader does, or, you know, what Tony says. I'm just kidding. I can be me, and I mean, I've told you guys before, like, just in general in my relationship with God, like, that's what made the difference, was being able to come here and just be who I am, and take my time getting to know God on a real level, and not rushing through it so that I can look better, you know, in time for everybody, you know, for what's going to happen. I can just take my time and really get there.
I'm glad you did.
Me too.
Right? And some of you go through that same thing every week. I mean, you're getting dressed for church, and you're worried about the wrong thing you did this week. Am I worthy enough to go worship God today? And is he going to even hear me when I pray to him? Or before you go to sleep at night, you're wondering, what if I die in my sleep because I was so bad today? But I want to tell you that Amy said, you know, when God said, okay, now, she said, but I don't even know how I feel about you. And I want to tell you that doesn't even matter. What matters is how he feels about you. What matters is how he sees you and what he's put in your life and the thing that he's called you to do. That's the part that matters. It's not how you feel about him, because I'm telling you, if you ever get a glimpse of how he feels about you, if you ever can grasp just how much love our Father has for you, then you will say yes. It will be easy for you to step out and do what he's put in you to do and be the person he's called you to be without holding back, without reservation. You don't have to live in that shame and that guilt, because God's love, you've experienced it. God's love covers a multitude of sins. I want to read a scripture for you this morning from the first chapter of John. When in this chapter, Jesus is just starting his ministry, and he has a few disciples. He doesn't have all 12 of them yet. He has a few of the disciples, and we're going to start reading in verse 37. 30. No, we're not. I don't know. We're going to read in verse 43. Sorry. John chapter 1, verse 43. This is right after he's called Peter to be his disciple. Verse 43 says, the next day Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, follow me. Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth, Nathanael asked, can anything good come from there? Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, here's a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus said, you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You'll see greater things than these. Now, I want you to hear the story this morning. How Jesus was being Jesus. He was doing what he was doing. He was going about teaching. He hadn't started miracles at this point yet. But he's starting to attract people. They're starting to come to him one by one. As he walks by, somebody hears what he has to teach and they follow him. Because Jesus had more than 12 disciples, you know. He had crowds of people that followed him. But at this point, he just has a few of them. And then he says to Philip, he says, follow me, Philip. And Philip followed him. Now, I want you to hear what the very first thing was that Philip did. Did you hear this? As soon as Jesus said, Philip, follow me, Philip went back and got Nathanael. Right? As the very first thing that he did when he heard the call of Jesus and responded in obedience, the first thing that he did was he went and found Nathanael. It's kind of like, you know, when you find a new Mexican restaurant. Okay, no. It's kind of like when I find a new Mexican restaurant. I'm like, Chris, we gotta go eat. That's right. We gotta go have lunch this week because you've never had Mexican like this Mexican. They even have a buffet. If you find something good, you want to tell your friends about it. If you find something that's life-changing, like, okay, I won't say the name of any restaurants because you'll go, bleh, but I think they're good. But when you find something that's as life-changing as a burrito, okay, let me just tell you about this place. Bunny Trail. If you've never been there, maybe you have. If you've ever been to Columbus, North Carolina, you know where that is? Go up 26 north. As soon as you get across the state line, exit Columbus. You're there. Go to the right. On your left, there's the Mexican restaurant. I don't even know what it's called. It's in an old Burger King, I think. But anyway, they're all in something else. There used to be something else. But I'm telling you, I went in there and I got this burrito that was bigger than my leg. That's not real hard, but sit down. Shut up. Anyway, it was the biggest burrito I've ever seen. We'll just make a road trip one day and go up there. And I'm telling you, you can share it with the family. But I didn't. I ate it. That's right, I ate it. But I want to tell you something else that I found that I want to tell everybody else about, and that is my relationship with Jesus. I heard about it from Sunday school when I was a child, when I was a year old. I can remember when I was 3, we changed churches and we went to a different church. I remember my 3rd birthday party, and I can remember a few things that happened when I was 2. So I have a lot of memories from way back early years. But I can remember when we changed churches when I was 3 years old, and I went into that beginner Sunday school class for the first time, and the teacher gave me this paper that had leaves on it. It was had leaves anyway. And every Sunday that we went back, she would give us this little round circle, and we colored it purple, and we glued it with Elmer's glue or whatever that smell good glue. Smell good. Anyway, we'd stick it on there. So by the end of that quarter, we had a bunch of grapes. on our grapevine. And the lesson that Sunday, the memory verse that Sunday was, I am the vine, ye are the branches. I remember that very first Sunday. It impacted my life. A few years after that, I accepted that Jesus who said he was the vine and I was a branch in him. I accepted him into my life as my Savior when I was 6 years old. I know that I know him. I've known him all those years. And I learned a whole lot about him over the years. And those things like Amy was talking about in my story, one of the things that kept that 21 years going so long, and this church didn't start 21 years ago, was because I kept coming up against roadblock after roadblock in starting this place until I found out that the roadblock was me. That the other things that I experienced in my life, besides meeting Jesus when I was 6, I was also sexually abused when I was 6, and that caused so much stuff in my life that just, I'm telling you, messed me up. And then but what happened, let me tell you about that church. That church where I met Jesus wasn't like Transformation House, because nobody ever told their stories. Oh, they would get up and talk. Like, I would like to thank the Lord for all his goodness. He's been so faithful, and he's answered my prayers, and, you know, I want to thank him for keeping the devil off my back this week. And that was the extent of sharing a story. That was called a testimony. That wouldn't get you very far if you went to court and told that testimony. I'm telling you. They would just say guilty and send you out the door. But there was never any chance for people to actually get up like Amy did today, or like we were able to do with Amber's story last Sunday, and share really real stories of how God had changed their life. So I didn't hear that. I thought everybody in the church was perfect. No, seriously, I thought everybody in the church was perfect. Even my mom and dad never talked negative about anybody in the church around us when we were kids. I never heard any negative stories. So my perception was that all those people in church were perfect because that's all they ever portrayed. Because the only time I ever saw them was in church. I don't know what they were doing on Tuesday night or Saturday night. I doubt they were as perfect as I had them all painted up to be in my fantasy life, fantasy story. So, because I was the only bad person in church, because I had the sexual abuse and all the things that came after it that were hanging on to me, and I was the only person who dealt with that in any church I ever went to. I never went to another church where there was a sexually abused person in it. At least not from my perspective. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that they were all over the place. That there was all kind of sin going on, that there was all kind of hurt and pain that people were experiencing, but they never one time opened their mouth and said anything about it. They never, ever confessed it. They never asked anybody for help. The only prayer request they had was, you know, that God would heal them from their arthritis or something like that. I mean, I pray for that too. That's just one of the things. That seems pretty minor, though, compared to all the hurt and pain that people live with in their lives day after day after day that hold them back from being able to be the person that God's called them to be. So, in the year 1999 and 2000, God began to deal with those issues in my heart because I brought myself, or He brought me to a place that I was able to start releasing some of the things. And you know, the problem up to that point was that since I couldn't talk to anybody else about it, then I assumed I couldn't talk to God about it either. And when I talked to Him about it, I talked to Him about it in very religious terms that didn't really mean much. But I want to tell you something, that God's plan for you is for you to be His child. His plan for you is that you know how you treat your children. If they're hurting, you want to know about it. If there's a pain, you want to be able to help them. You want to kiss their boo-boos like somebody said. Kaylee, was it Kaylee that said it? You want to kiss their boo-boos and make them feel better. You want to keep them away from their brothers so that they don't get hurt. You want to protect your children. That's the kind of that's the kind of relationship you want to have. It's the way your Heavenly Father wants to treat you. In fact, he made a way for you to be treated different, completely different, 180 degrees different. Yeah, 180 degrees different than the way you've lived your life up to this point. Because you try to fix yourself, you try to help yourself, and it doesn't work. Over and over and over. It's just another stumbling block. You find yourself just going backwards. You try to push forward. You try to get to the place you want to be, and you find yourself backwards instead of forward. Over and over and over. Self-help doesn't work for you. Because you can't save yourself. There's no possible way for you to save yourself or heal yourself from your hurt. You can't put up enough walls to protect you. You can't build enough barriers between you and other people to keep you safe. There's no way that even you can tear down a wall to make yourself open completely, that you can save yourself by doing that either. It takes the power of Jesus in your life to change you and to heal you and to bring you to the place that he wants you to be. It takes him. It has to be Jesus working in your life, right? It has to be you coming to a cross and saying, Jesus, I accept this gift of life that you give me. I'm tired of living in death. I'm tired of my life being backwards and upside down. I want to live a life that makes sense. I want to be healed. I want my emotions to be healed. I want my heart to be healed. I don't want to live in this pain any longer. And so you have to come to this place that the cross really works for you, to where you come into a relationship with Jesus and you accept that gift of grace that he gives you. And it doesn't mean that, okay, now I get to start, Amy, now you're the worship leader. You get to start being good and make sure that you're good enough now for next Sunday, because if you're not, it's probably going to sound horrible. You know, because we punish ourselves if we mess up. If something bad happens, then it's because I messed up. No. Something bad happens, it's because you have an enemy. And every time something good happens, it's because you have a Father. Every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, who loves you and who gave his Son for you. The one who calls you into relationship with him, like Jesus called to Philip. He said, come follow me. God is saying that to you. He's saying, come follow me. And then when you follow him, when you come into that relationship with him, then you have a chance to say to your friend, look, my life has changed. I'm not dead. The big change is I'm not dead anymore. I'm alive. Jesus is living in me. And you share that with your friends, and then your friends are going to say, what are you talking about? Like Nathaniel said to Philip, can anything good even come out of Nazareth? I mean, they're going to say that. Pickens County? Are you kidding me? But they'll say things like, you've heard it. Surely nothing good comes out of Easley. We know better, don't we? My daddy was born in Easley.
Carla lives in Easley too.
Well, welcome to the family. But did you hear when Nathaniel said to Philip, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Surely this is not the Messiah. Did you hear what Philip said to him? His simple response was, come and see. Just come see. Come see Jesus for yourself. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to force anybody to come to him. You don't try to manipulate them. You don't even have, there's nothing hard about a yes. You just have to say yes. When Jesus says, look, there's your friend over there. He needs me. Your friend over there is really hurting and could use a dose of what you've experienced. What you experienced in the love of this church family, you have friends that can experience that too. Amy's had plenty of chances to tell people. Amber's had plenty of chances, and they keep bringing people in. And we keep opening the door wide for people to come to Jesus. He just said, come and see for yourself. And then, when Nathaniel came to Jesus, Jesus says, well, look at you, Mr. Perfect Israelite. Now, I don't know what Jesus' attitude was when he said it, but this is going to be my interpretation of this story. Jesus says, well, here comes an Israelite who has not a bad bone in his body. He's good. And Nathaniel says, how do you know me? You've never met me. You know, the way you approached Jesus when you came to him the first time, you can't tell me anything about me. You don't know me. I know you did that too, right? And Jesus said, I do know you because I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you. Now, when I was in Sunday school in the 4th grade, when we didn't talk about stuff, the story of Nathaniel being under the fig tree was just Jesus knew he was under a fig tree. Well, we don't know what the extent of this conversation was. But I wonder what he was doing under the fig tree. I know, just make up your own story. I don't know. But whatever it was, Jesus' words to him that I saw you under the fig tree connected to him. Nathaniel said, either uh-oh. or something happened in that exchange between Jesus and Nathaniel that Jesus got his attention and said, look, I do know you. I made you. I made you for this relationship. I made you for this very day. I don't know. Maybe Nathaniel was contemplating his future under the fig tree. Maybe he was thinking about all the things that he wanted to do in his life that hadn't happened up to this point. Maybe he just got dumped. And where he went after his girlfriend dumped him was under a fig tree to cry. Maybe he was under there counting money he just stole from the Piggly Wiggly. I don't know. Whatever it was, Jesus knew about it. And Philip knew if Jesus knows this, then Jesus knows me. Whatever it was. Could have been something serious. Maybe he was contemplating suicide. Maybe life just got him down so far that he didn't think he could live another day. And he went under the fig tree to make his plans. Whatever it was that Nathaniel did, Jesus knew it. What you need to hear today is that wherever it is that you go, in that private place that nobody else knows about, and you go and you have your me time, and maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe it's the place that you're going to think about your future, the plans that you want to make for your life, the person that you want to be with for the rest of your life, or the person you want to be for the rest of your life. Or maybe you're thinking about, I just wish my life would be over. Whatever it is, Jesus is in that place with you. He knows what the feelings of your heart are. He knows every one of them, good and bad. And he's made a way for you to be in relationship with him so that when you come to him, that completely turns around. So that it's not sarcastic when he says, here comes a true Israelite in whom there is no fault. But you come into a relationship with him where he says, here's a real person. Here's a real person that I can have a relationship with. We all have faults. We know that wasn't true about Nathaniel, that he didn't have any faults. Because there weren't any of those people around anywhere. Never have been. Never will be. There are no perfect people. So, which leads me to believe that you can read this with sarcasm, by the way. That's the reason we got there. But what you need to hear is that what Jesus said to him was this. He says, you think that was a big deal? That I know your thoughts? That I know the plans that you were making? That I know where you were when you were back there by yourself? You think that's a big deal? If you will just follow me, you'll see greater things than this. This is nothing compared to what I want to do in you. Because he said the same thing to Nathaniel and to Philip that he said to all of his disciples. He said, if you follow me, I will make you a fisher of men. I will send you out and you will go and you will bring others in. It's not just about you coming in, but you're coming in because as you come in, you're creating a doorway for others to follow you. As you come into the relationship with Jesus, you're just opening that path wide so that there's no obstacle. You're like a trailblazer. You're going first so that other people can come behind you and come into a relationship with Jesus that changes their lives. That's why we call this place Transformation House. We want lives to be transformed. And once your life is transformed and you come into that relationship with Jesus, everything changes. Everything changes. I want to tell you something this morning, and that is that you have a few options today. This message, what you've heard from Amber and from Amy's stories this morning. Tell you love the kids, the video. Think about the impact that you have in those young lives. Those kids, all of you, impact their lives every Sunday when you see them. I wish we could have gotten them all on there. But when you see them on Sunday, you have an impact, just like the Sunday school teacher that I had when I was 3 years old, who taught me that first memory verse. I still hold it in my heart. In fact, when she died, that I put that verse on the card, on the flower that I sent to the funeral home when she died just a few years ago. Because it impacted my life so much to know that Jesus had a plan for me, even as a 3-year-old. So this morning you have a choice. You can either ignore this message that Jesus knows you and that he's calling you into relationship, or you could do the easy thing. I know ignoring is easy, but it doesn't get easy. It gets harder. It gets harder and harder to ignore. But the easy thing is just to say yes. Just to say, yes, Jesus, I want that relationship with you. And then once I get that relationship with you, I want somebody else to have it. I want that person to get it so much that they bring somebody else, and I want them to bring somebody else, so that this thing that I have in me, this impact that you've made in my life, impacts far beyond me. So that you think about the person that impacted you to get you here, to the place that you are. Who was the person that shared with you the gospel, or told you about Jesus, or told you about Transformation House that just got you in the door? You don't know the price that person paid. You don't know the heartache that they went through. You don't know how many places under a fig tree they sat when they wanted to give up, but they one day said yes to Jesus. One day they made the right decision and said, I'm going to say yes to Jesus. And because they did, now you've experienced life. You've experienced something in your life that you didn't have before. You can be the exact same thing to somebody else. We're here because we want to impact our city. This place exists because we want Greenville to be transformed. You know, look at us. We're just a small group of people. Not very powerful, not very rich, not very wise. I'm trying to quote the scripture. I'm not saying anything bad about you. I'm just trying to do Paul's scripture. So there aren't many of us. We're not that rich. We're not that smart. Okay, I know you are. But I believe there is so much potential in this room that Greenville will be different because of this. That our city will be changed. And not just our city. I think it's going to go farther. I mean, Quest Community Church doesn't just touch Lexington, Kentucky. Now there's a satellite church in Frankfort, Kentucky. But now there are uprising churches like Transformation House all over, not just America, but all over the world. There are people who are watching around the world every time they put a service online, and who come to the uprising every April from different countries. That is what you're part of. You're part of something that will change somebody's life. And if it's just one person, I'm okay with that. But I just don't believe it stops there. I don't believe it's going to stop with one person. I think that the impact you have when you say yes will go so much farther than what you even imagine. God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we're able to ask or even think. I can't even imagine big enough to get where God wants us to be. I can't even imagine how, I don't mean big as in numbers. I don't know what that's like. What I do know is that Jesus said, he told a parable. I'm going to end with this, but he told a parable to his disciples. And you know, the parables were the stories that have a moral at the end. The moral of the story is, and some of them, you know, you can expand the moral of the story to make it mean really a whole lot of things. But when he says, this is it, then you know what it is, right? Jesus told the story about the man who set up a banquet, and he invited all of his friends to come to the banquet. And he said, come, I want to fill up this place because I want to have a feast. I want us just to party, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And his friends, one by one, began to make excuses why they couldn't be there. Well, I'd like to come, but I'd be there, but, and one by one, eventually his servants came to him and said, nobody's coming to your party. And he said, well, then you go and invite this person, that person, that person, and tell them to come in because we got some empty seats. So his servants came back and he said, we did that. They're not coming either. And Jesus said this. He said, and then the king will say to them, go into the highways and byways and compel them to come in that my house may be full. Now that doesn't sound very nice. Jesus, don't be compelling people to come to church just because you want your house full. Have you heard that? But this is it. This is what it is. You know, somebody who, if I'm standing out on the sidewalk and Darnell's out there with his I Love My Church t-shirt on, and he goes over and he grabs me by the neck and he says, come on into church this morning, you're going to love this. And he marches me in and I get a hard red seat to sit on. I'll say, thank you very much. Next week I'll go somewhere like McDonald's. That's not very compelling.
No.
Is it? Well, technically it's compelling. That's not compelling. What is compelling is me hearing Amy tell a story of how so long she didn't even know how she felt about God, but he drew her in. That compels me. Me hearing your story of how you came to Christ and what he did in your life, how he changed you, and how he got you from this place where you were to where you are now, that compels me to come to him. That's a compelling story. I think that's what Jesus meant when he said, you go out to where people are who don't, people that wouldn't even think twice about coming to a banquet because they don't feel like you wouldn't belong. The people in the highways and the byways don't feel like they're worthy to sit at a king's banquet. But go out and compel them to come in with your story. Go out and tell them how good the banquet is. Tell them how good it is to be in the presence of the king and what he will do for them once they get here. That's compelling. And he said the reason to do that is that my house may be full. I don't think he means this house. I would love that. I would love this place to be full. I consider this full, by the way. But I would love for it to be really full. We pull out the folding chair so they don't even get a comfortable red hard chair. They get a folding chair. Bring out all the fancy stuff. But Jesus said, that's my plan, is for you to compel people. Share what I've done for you. Just go say, come and see. Come and see for yourself. It's not hard. It's really not hard. All you have to do is when Jesus gives you that nudge and said, that one, that friend, that person. Don't say, now. Just say, okay, yes. Yes, I will say yes. Most likely, if what you do is share your story that's compelling, they're going to respond in a positive way. And even if it doesn't get them in the doors of Transformation House, if it would bring them to a door of a church somewhere or to a place of having a conversation with a believer or just a conversation with God that they've never had or that they haven't had in a long time, it would be worth you sticking your neck out and saying, come, listen to my story. Listen to what God did for me. You don't have to make it religious. No, wait. Please don't make it religious. Just make it real.
Yeah.
Make it your story. Whatever it is, tell that story. Don't worry about, you don't even have to open this to witness. You do not have to open this to witness. To witness, all you have to do is witness. You know what a witness does when they get on the stand in court? They tell what they saw and what they heard. That's all there is to it. What did you experience? What did Jesus do for you? How did he change your life? That's what witnessing is. Just say, come and see. He did it for me. If he did it for me, come see what he'll do for you. Don't you think they'll respond? I want to pray this morning that God will do something in our hearts. Would you bow with me? Or leave your eyes open if you like to, Darnell. maybe this morning as you just pray in your heart, but maybe this morning, today's the day that you feel like this is the time for you to say yes. If your relationship with Jesus hasn't been what it's supposed to be, and you haven't come to that place of surrender to him, of saying, Jesus, I want you to be the Lord of my life. The things that I've held on to that have been my roadblocks, I want to give them up. I want those things in my life to not hold me back, but I want to live free of them. That's where you are today. I want to ask you just to say that to Jesus. Just say that to him. He's listening now, just like he listened to Nathanael under the fig tree. Let this be a fig tree moment for you, where you have a real conversation with Jesus, and you say to him, Jesus, I want to say yes to you now. I want what you hear from me in response to what you've done for me. First of all, to be thank you for loving me. Thank you for dying for me, making a way for me to have a relationship with you. I want to be in that relationship, so I say yes now. Just say that to him now. And today, after the service is over, if you've said that prayer, if you have said that yes to Jesus, I want to pray for you. If you just come tell me that today in the service I said yes, then I want to pray with you.